You shout it out, but I can't hear a word you say. I'm talking loud, not saying much.
So when I thought about talking to you about this, I suppose it took a lot of thought and, of course, knowing whether this was appropriate or whether it was something we even should share, because I can tell you now the past year's been a huge journey. And when I thought about the name for this, I thought being brave was probably fairly apt. For those of you that haven't seen her, she has been on so many of our videos and she's been a huge part of our lives, and a really, really fun dog to own. She is a fantastic agility dog and loved doing agility from day one. She thought agility was a really cool thing, a really, really, really intense dog, and yet the sweetest natured dog I think we've ever owned. Nice with puppies, good over her toys, lovely with people, just a genuinely cool, cool dog, and really does love life. I suppose the dog that showed so much promise in her litter, and we kept her from day one. Her and Everest were staying from day one. She grew really into an amazing and faultless dog. Like, I genuinely couldn't fault Brave. Maybe, you know what, if I was to pick one fault, it might be that when she's really, really, really excited, it's not her turn, she struggles with not taking a turn. But you know what, cool with hoverboards, cool with multi-dogs, really just a very kind and a very honest dog. A fierce and gritty dog at the same time. And any dog who's a child's dog, you know what, they've got to be pretty cool to be a child's dog.
Oh, why is she your best friend?
Because she's my best friend.
What does she do that makes you your best friend?
She just, I don't know, but she's just my best friend.
What makes her your best friend?
I don't know.
How much do you love her?
So much. 1,000 billion infinity. Infinity's not a number.
And then you put a little bit of gravel like that around.
You love her a lot.
But
yeah,
mostly
1,000,000%.
that tank will be encased in concrete.
Children don't always give credit where credit's due. And I can remember so many times with Eliza saying, Liza, reward her, and Brave just carried on anyway. She was just a good girl. Swimmer beyond all swimmers, and a dog who completely loved the water, surfing, waves, like just being part of it all. She absolutely loved every second. Now, I suppose in life you get dogs who are your teachers, maybe a teacher of more than games. And for me, I feel like with Brave, her mum Style, her sister Everest, we've learned lessons that teach us way more than games. And like I said, when I was thinking about how to name this, being brave seemed like a very, very apt name. And weirdly, you know what, when we named Brave after a Disney movie. I never realised how appropriate that name would actually end up being. So here's Liza playing games. This was basically Eliza's teacher and student all at the same time. She taught Eliza patience. She continues to teach Eliza patience. Eliza taught her the seesaw, which actually was probably one of Eliza's proudest moments. Look, Mummy, I've taught her the seesaw. And what I loved with Brave would work with anybody. Like, she would work with anybody. This is Max Sprintz. He's an international trainer and a trainer in Germany. Amazing, amazing trainer. And he just said, God, she's cool. Like, she's really cool. She's the sort of dog that really could turn her paw to anything. And I credit that hugely to Brave as being an amazing dog, and the games and the concepts and the learning that she grew up in, because she was probably, I think, probably one of our first dogs who has grown up completely with concept-based learning. And that's really all she's ever known. She was an absolute gritty, fierce monster when it came to doing things like man work. But if you look at her, she's having so much joy. And what I love watching Brave being Brave is that there was no problem too big. Like, nothing is insurmountable. She's the sort of dog that is going to take it on. She absolutely is going to take it on. I suppose the big thing here is it's fueled by a heart of gold, and it's fueled by a dog who is confident. So when you're watching games like this, don't think for a minute that there's not a part of that Brave is not loving. She's absolutely loving it, and everything about what she's doing here is oozing confidence and joy. And I watched these videos back with huge sort of pride in what Brave was doing, huge learning in what I was learning, because I have never had an opportunity to play games like this, especially not with a Border Collie. Like, this is not a Border Collie game. This is a German Shepherd game, or a Malinois game, or a big dog game. And here's Brave taking someone down in a bathroom and going out and looking like she's got this. And you know what? I kind of felt she had. And for me, that's a cool thing to trust a very special dog here doing some really cool stuff. Here you can see I had an opportunity to play something that I have never played before, and I'm so grateful that I got to play this with Brave. Now, watching how Brave grew up, like I said, concept training was at the very heart of all of her early stages. And I feel that as her journey has gone, this has been more and more important. I don't even think that I knew the importance of the key concepts: confidence, optimism, grit, tolerance of frustration, impulse control, thinking and arousal, disengagement, arousal up, arousal down, was until possibly the last year, where so many of these things have come into play for us. I definitely don't want you to be sad, and that is not the intention of any of this, because some of the stuff that I'm going to show you in a minute may shock some of you. And you know what? Everything happens for a reason, and there's so many lessons here that I'm going to be able to share with you. Here we are finishing some of the Sex and the Squirrel ads, and you know what? She had a blast and we had a blast. And as much as I do watch this and I'm definitely emotional, and you guys have not seen me emotional like this, so much of this is actually a joy to share with you, because I can tell you now that actually the learning that comes from owning a dog is huge. And sometimes you don't know how important these lessons are going to be. And you also don't know how important sharing these lessons could be. And so for me, I really wanted to share with you something that happened, and I didn't know quite how big this would be.
When you try your best, but you don't succeed.
So, being typical Lauren and what we do here at Absolute Dogs, we have pretty much everything on camera, from the accident that Brave had on the 8th of September to all of her recovery. Now, we never intended to get her accident on camera. She was sprinting through the field with our other dogs. She came sprinting from the house and sprinted, and it's a freak accident. At the same time, we've got CCTV on our site. I wanted to know what on earth had happened for obvious reasons, and I wanted to know that she hadn't been hurt by another dog. Brave's accident is called an ANNPE, and it caused paralysis in Brave. And you know what? I've never seen a dog paralysed, and I definitely don't want to see dogs paralysed. It's something that, especially in a young, healthy dog, you never expect to see. And you never expect to see it in your own dog. And you also say, this can't happen to me. And why Brave? Why her? Like, why a dog that's so sweet and so kind and such a joy to own? Now, Brave's not in pain. As much as you might be watching this thinking, God, this looks terrible, and you guys might also feel a bit sad, she's not in pain here. And I think it's important to acknowledge that they deal with this way better than we do, like way better than we do. And I think for me, you question yourself a lot. You ask yourself so many questions, but I suppose most of all that actually there's been a huge amount of progress from this. And as much as you see the early stages here, we're not there anymore. So please don't panic. It's got a lot better. Brave came home after probably a couple of days in the vets. She had a scan And that scan showed us that basically a small amount of jello-like material from the centre of her disc has been shot up the spinal cord at a high velocity. Eliza's got a little message here, in fact, to explain it.
My name is Brave, and I love to race. But sadly, when I was racing, I hurt my left leg, and I can't feel my left leg. So yeah, basically my left leg is kind of gone, but I still have it, and hopefully I'll get back to normal. But my owner, Eliza, is only 8. Next year, in February, she'll be 9, and that's what makes me excited, because I get to do more heel work to music and agility.
Now, children and dogs, you know what, they are amazing, and the support team we've had around us to work with being brave, you know what, that's also been amazing. So I'm going to chat to just one of our support teams so you get to hear a little bit more about it, and hopefully a fraction more logical than I am right now.
Hey Montana, I wanted to introduce you to everyone because I know how big it was for me initially to need, I suppose, a level of support, possibly, physiotherapy, veterinary, and also probably as a friend and emotionally, because for me, this was a huge deal and I really didn't know what I was doing. So I remember touching base with you pretty much immediately after the shock and trauma of it happening, and pretty quickly was in touch. So I suppose first off, I'm going to introduce you. You're Montana, you're my friend, and you're a vet who has studied in physiotherapy in animals and rehabilitation. Maybe tell us a bit more about that, Montana.
Yeah, I'm a rehab vet in Australia. So we have a rehab clinic over here. We sort of do hydrotherapy and recovery from injury, older dogs that have had surgeries, all sorts of things. So just getting them through that recovery phase. And basically a big part of my job is holding owners' hands and giving them guidance through a period that a lot of vets don't tend to have the time to give the home care advice that is really needed. How do you actually move your dog from A to B in those early stages and things like that? So that's a lot of what our job is, and I love it.
I think that was my initial shock. It was, she's home. Now, what do I do? And I know that I contacted you very, very early on, being really out of my depth and possibly not also understanding the vet sort of expectation and my expectation of what normal was. They said it's going to be normal within 6 weeks. I brought home a dog and I know initially I couldn't have even talked about any of this. I was, as you know, it was really emotional. And yet for me, bringing her home and having like the setup, I mean, one of the first things you told me was buy a harness, because I was trying to carry around on a sling. And Matt and Liza and I were all trying to use a sling very badly. And you told us about harnesses, you told us about how like you had to go to the toilet on a sling or a harness, because these are all things that when you own a healthy sort of 4 or 5 year old dog, you don't expect to need to know, and you don't expect to need to have. So these were like really basic things, Montana, from your point of view, but from me they were massive. Like I didn't have a clue where to start.
Yeah, when you've never had a debilitated dog to that extent, and a neurological condition is a big one on the spectrum of they go from normal dog to not at all normal. Those easy everyday things that for me, I give guidance on every day, but for you, it's, oh my God, this is a completely different dog to 48 hours ago, and how to manage that, because that ease of you guys managing the early stuff is just as important to her recovery as the actual physio side of things. If you're uncomfortable and she's stressed and she's not comfortable, then she's not going to recover as well either.
I think that was part of it. I mean, the shock and the trauma for us, and then for her, and then combining the two. I mean, tell us a little bit, you obviously from a veterinary perspective, you understand, and a rehab perspective, you understand her condition slightly more. So maybe explain. So it's an ANNPE that Brave, that the injury was. And what I really didn't understand at the time is, how does this happen in what seems like to me a really healthy dog? And when she was x-rayed, all of her spine was good and all of her discs were good. It was like, this is a healthy dog. So what is this, Montana? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so this is where it's a really different one. A lot of people have heard about intervertebral disc disease. So it's that you would see in, say, a sausage dog, a dachshund, that are very long-backed dogs. So what you see when you look at Brave at the time was very similar to what you would see with, say, a dachshund, but it's a very different condition in how we treat it and how it actually happens. So basically what happened to her is a traumatic event. Nothing could preempt it. Nothing she did at the time was wrong. It's a fluke accident, basically. And a little bit of her disc breaks off, her spinal disc, and hits the spinal cord. And it creates a bruise on that spinal cord. And that's actually what causes the long-term damage. So when she had her imaging afterwards and things like that, there's nothing for them to go in and correct surgically. There's nothing actually there. It's the bruise that's causing the issue and is what's caused that loss of function for her. So the inability to use her legs and toilet and things like that. Obviously, you and I know if you've got a bruise on a body part, there's not much you can do to get rid of it. You just have to wait. Whereas a bruise on the spinal cord takes a lot longer to recover. And also how severe the signs are early on is really important as well. So for Brave, she was quite severe. So we expect to see her return to a normal life. She's able to move around and things like that, but she's always going to have some imbalances in her gait. So how she moves is never going to look quite right again. She'll be able to move around and live a normal life, but it's not completely curable.
I think that was the initial sort of shock for me, that when you come out and they're like, yeah, in 6 weeks, you'll be back to normal. And I remember thinking 6 weeks, I can do that. Like we can do 6 weeks. And then realizing that it was more than that. So I suppose it would be cool to talk through some of the things we did in Montana, because as much as, of course, we never, ever would want anyone to go through this, and we definitely didn't want to go through it ourselves either. At the same time, it was, I think, really powerful, the learning and the growth and the understanding, the friendship, all of the things that came and grew even stronger through, I suppose, being Brave. And for me, what sort of things did we do to start with? Because it really did start quite slow. And some of it, I suppose, I mean, we videoed and tracked pretty much everything. And at the same time, there's so much tracking that there's so much you can lose. So we started, and we were in a very lucky position, right? Because we're in a position where we do have a hydrotherapy centre with a water treadmill, with a swimming pool, with heat and shower heads and things that we can use to sort of stimulate and help Brave. From day one, and we were pretty much doing this on your instruction. So where did we start, and what were we aiming to achieve?
Yeah, so this was an easy one for me to guide on, even though I'm on the other side of the world. I know you have the equipment, so it was easy for me to say, go do this from day one.
This was weird, right? Because like so many people said, why didn't you use a local therapist? And I was like, well, with like, again, the bonuses that come out of a really weird time, like lockdowns and sort of really odd time. With lockdowns, it wasn't easy to do anything. And actually, I felt like if I was going to work with anyone, I wanted to work with someone I really trusted with Brave, and that I really wanted to understand. And at the time, you were probably the person that I knew the best. And obviously, you Brave, you have one of Brave's daughters. Like we absolutely know it very, very well. And so I kind of felt like it was really appropriate to reach straight out to you. And so yeah, it was almost the most appropriate thing to work with someone in Australia. And that does weird, like let's work with someone in Australia in the treadmill, but you used to come with a Zoom into the pool treadmill and you'd be there too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this touches on something you said before, which is a really badly used term in the vet world, and is one that you and I worked really well on, because I know you so well and you know me so well already, is that normal means completely different things to different people. So when someone says to you, she'll be normal in 6 weeks, you see the Brave that's running around like a loon and loving life and sprinting with her sisters and things like that. Whereas normal, by what the vet probably said to you at the time, was she'll be able to walk again, which she could, but she doesn't look normal, and she definitely didn't 6 weeks post-op.
Yeah, for sure. Normal was I think they were considering maybe she'd be able to wee alone, and things that I just took for granted and never really considered as things that we would need to really think about.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the early stages, a lot of it was about making her comfortable, and for you guys learning how to actually move this dog that now can't walk and could a couple of days ago. So as you touched on before, the harness was a huge part of it. They're called help 'em up harnesses, and basically it allowed her to be supported by you guys holding her bum up essentially, without having a sling under her belly and her feeling like you're really in her space. So it gave us the ability to move her around without you invading her personal space. And so she could pee in peace, for example. And those sorts of things are really important. The other things we worked on a lot in the really early stages was, one, her comfort of where she was staying. So nice and safe and not able to injure herself further, but also things like avoiding pressure sores. So she had lots of comfy bedding. I remember some very cute photos of her in the early days, cuddled up with Eliza and nice and comfy.
And the pressure sores was something I never, ever thought about again. Like, I just didn't consider pressure sores. And then when we thought about it, I was like, actually, that makes complete sense. Like, pressure sores are a really obvious thing that she could have. Yeah,
exactly. And it's one of those ones, until you have a dog that can't move and can't walk, you don't even consider it. So yeah, for her, it was a big part of, obviously, before you can run, you need to be able to walk. And before you can walk, you need to be able to stand. So the early stages was a lot of you guys just supporting her hips and holding her in a standing position so that she could at least be horizontal and vertical and not lying down 24/7. So she was standing up and doing some balance exercises to start with, just on the grass.
Yeah. And then the thing that I think shocked me was how quickly you said from there, okay, let's get her in the water. And I was like, oh my God, let's get her in the water. And I mean, like I said, at the time, I couldn't have talked about any of it. I wanted to share it with everyone in a sense of learning, but I just physically, mentally couldn't handle it. But me and you, we'd get in the treadmill and we'd talk it through, and you'd give us the exercises, and it definitely got better and better. But quite quickly, we were in the treadmill. Like, that was the shock for me. Like, really, probably within, I imagine it was within the first 10 days, we were in the treadmill.
Yeah, I reckon it was, the first week or so she was in there. And the reason for that, and this is where it's really important for people to understand that there's a huge difference in what people say hydrotherapy for dogs. So we were talking about her being in an underwater treadmill with people in with her. So we're not talking about chucking her in a pool and letting her try and swim on her own. She definitely couldn't have done that early on. You guys were in the treadmill with her. And the reason that is so beneficial so early is because the water is buoyant. So it takes part of her weight. So instead of you guys having to micromanage her balance on land, you can just stand her in water and it does majority of the work for you. And she gets to build that confidence on her own of correcting those little imbalances rather than that tiny imbalance resulting in her face planting and falling over completely.
Like the water made such a difference. And Matt became pretty cool at
yes. I want him to come and move to Australia so he can work for me. It's great.
He has multiple rehab opportunities now in therapies, and the team here have been phenomenal, like really phenomenal. It's changed lifestyles here for sure. Brave obviously now has more care than she ever would have. Yes. I've obviously needed support with that because it just wasn't something that we didn't plan for it. And at the same time, the more sessions we did, and we didn't overdo her ever, did we, Montana? It was like little sessions, really between you and another great friend of mine, Mel. Yeah. I would check in with you guys whenever I could, because Mel sometimes could be here in person, and you obviously there was no chance out of Australia, and so for me it really works so nicely being able to have you almost in the treadmill with me, giving us ideas and ways to go, because we just didn't know when we could move it on, right?
Yeah, and this is what was great about working with you guys from a Zoom point of view. Even though I wasn't there, I didn't need to be, because the biggest thing about rehab is it's about quality, not quantity. You need to take it at whatever stage that dog is progressing at. And working these dogs in fatigue and exhaustion isn't good for their muscles or the joints, but it's also not good for them mentally to feel like you're forcing them to do things. So because you guys had such good access to facilities and things, we could have a chat every day, every other day, and have a session with her and have a really short, good quality session rather than, for example, if you'd been going to someone more local, you'd probably be having an appointment once a week or once a fortnight. And yes, those are still going to be beneficial to dogs in Brave's condition, but the more quality and the more short sessions you can get, the better it is for them to progress.
And I suppose then we grew and we carried on growing to the point that Brave was walking, trotting, and actually did really, really well on the treadmill. Sometimes the land base compared to the treadmill base was different. So we had to keep sort of altering and adjusting and tweaking. And like you told me, no two dogs are the same in this. So this is something that every dog is unique and it's neurological. So you know what, with neurological, we don't always know where it's going and we don't always know how fast it's coming back, if it's ever coming back, right? And I think that was a hard, stark realization to hit. And at the same time, I always felt really like we could chat it through. It felt better than it would have done not understanding it. And that definitely, Montana, the progress was cool. Like we've had a lot of progress, right?
Yeah, she's changed hugely. And I think that's part that I love about her recovery is that you could come to me and say, she looks like this in the treadmill, but she doesn't look that good on land. And that's exactly what I would expect for her to do. When she has the support of the water, it's easier. She looks better. But obviously she doesn't look like that in normal life, or didn't at certain points. So that delay in that transition, I find it's really important for people to understand that the reason we push them so hard in the treadmill and things is so that we then get to that point with them in normal life, rather than seeing exactly the same at the same time. Now,
the weird thing is Brave could trot in the treadmill when we mechanically made it happen. And yet this I found so strange. And I really did find this strange because it didn't kind of work for my brain. However, two things I really noticed changed. She couldn't trot on land, and Brave always had the most beautiful trot. She would trot around with Eliza doing heel work, and she always had a gorgeous trot, and she lost the trot completely. And the second one is when she swam, because we did start swimming her maybe 3 or 4 months in, really. It took us a while to swim her. But a few months in, we would swim her. She changed her swim gait to a double push. So no longer would she do like a 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. She would do push, push, push. So like had lost all of the sort of patterns of movement. What's that about?
Yeah, and so this is why it's easy to understand it as a bruise. Basically, when the bruise happens, all of those pathways are lost. So it's basically like teaching a newborn puppy how to walk again and how to trot and things like that. And if you've got a neurological condition and you don't know how to do any of those gaits, it's easy for them to learn to walk again because it's slow and it's easier to control. Whereas a trot takes a lot of coordination. And so even though we've seen a huge improvement in Brave over the time, that's never a gait that she's going to get back because it just requires too much Montana, balance.
I haven't told you, but actually in the last few weeks, she's just starting.
Oh, yes.
A slightly, it's different. It's still a trot though, right? Like, and I know that we said, and this is something you did say to me early on, you were like, we probably won't get it back, but we could. And
exactly.
Could maybe be there as a bit of a like glimmer of hope. And the weird thing, I'm going to send you a video. She actually does trot again, and probably only in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I think this is the weird thing with like what everyone tells you, like they're like 6 weeks. And when I say everyone, I meant the veterinary profession, like everyone I'd seen told me that. And I kind of was like 6 weeks now, that's it. Actually, she's continued to improve. And whilst she does still look a little bit drunk at times, her movements are really noticeable when you know her. So when you know her, you're like, wow, she actually, and then the weird thing is sometimes it goes backwards again. And that's pleasant, but most of the time it goes fairly forwards, but very, very slowly, very slowly.
Yeah. And this is the thing I remember us talking about partway along the recovery was like we're probably 12 months, a bit more over 12 months.
Yeah, just over 12 months.
Yep. And I remember chatting to you at the 6 week mark, and you were quite upset at that point because you had the expectation that she would be fine then, because that's
and I think I had the realization as well. I had the expectation and the misaligned expectation, and then the stark reality of you are not where you think you are, and you're not going to be where you think you're going, because I think I started to like put it all in place and be like, hang on a second, this is not getting better straight away.
Yep. And after that, we saw huge improvements in her, but she definitely had improvements plateaus, improvements, we went backwards a bit. Like, it's not been a linear process. It's definitely a up and down. And yeah, we haven't had a chat about this in a couple of weeks. And so the fact that she's trotting now, that's a huge step compared to, say, a month ago. And yet she's more than 12 months post-injury. So it doesn't mean that what they look like 8 weeks post-injury is what you're stuck with forever.
Today she looks, I had her out on the bridle path this morning. Yesterday I was swimming with her. Today she looks quite straight, like really quite straight, whereas sometimes she can look quite curved. And then yesterday swimming, she largely did 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Is, and we get goggles, we go underneath and like look at her. It's a bit crazy, and I try and trolley her and keep her straight. And we're learning hydrotherapy all the time because therapies, it was always something we used, but obviously never for rehabilitation really, especially not a neurological condition, which is completely different in terms of rehabilitation. I've learned from you and other people in our team, which has been amazing. And at the same time, like you said, you wish you didn't have to learn that lesson.
What Brave had, it was a fluke. We couldn't have anticipated it was going to happen. There's nothing in her life now that is putting her at risk of it. Just because it happened once doesn't put her at risk of it happening again. So it's where each condition is different, but also each dog is different. Like the fact that I knew how Brave played with your other dogs and things like that before surgery or before her injury, means that it's easy for me to give advice. And I know how much you guys are good at putting management in place and making sure that she's in the right environment, that I don't worry about her playing with other dogs or crashing into other dogs. It doesn't stress me out at all because I know that you guys have the knowledge to deal with that, which is where it's so important that any rehab journey is individual to that dog and that owner.
And I suppose for me, that realization, which is that actually Brave is a dog, like she is still able to be a dog. And of course, she doesn't have the same freedoms as she did before. She definitely doesn't get unsupervised time racing around the yard. At the same time, she definitely does time to socialize and chill out. And she probably gets a little bit more privileged. Right. She comes to movie nights and fish and chip events and everything else that she could be involved in, Mexican evenings. She's kind of like the celebrity. So I suppose from here, Montana, first off, I want to say a huge thank you for all of your help, your support, and your friendship through this, because for me, it was certainly a lot about me as much as her, and Matt and all of the team needing a bit of sometimes just a pep talk as well. Like, guys, this is okay. This is normal. So a huge thank you. And massive sort of appreciation for what you do. And I hope that we have many more cool conversations on Brave and definitely carry on going onwards. Thank you so much for all of your input.
Not a problem at all. It's been great being part of her team for the recovery. So I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's the thing. It's a team effort. It really is. And she's got the best team behind her. So it's been great to be part of it.
For me, this is more a lesson, I think, about teamwork. Our team, I cannot thank everyone who's been part of our team. There are too many people to name individually, and I'd hate to miss anyone, but a couple of the people that have helped us, I think maybe we'll get a snippet here from Mel, for example. Mel's been amazing as a physio. I'll let you hear from her.
I have very clear sort of memory that first time I came down after obviously what had happened to her. And sort of I walked in and the look on your face was such like, help, I really don't know what to do here. And I need someone to support me, really. And I think, you know, I thought, this is what I do, you know, this is where I can help you and help her. And I think it's been, you know, challenging with the distance. But I think we've, between us all, done really good, actually. I think she's come so far, and a lot of that is due to sort of your commitment to everything that I asked you to do. Matt's involvement was amazing. He certainly could make the best therapist if he ever decided to change career. I think it's really just looking at maintaining what she's achieved to date, and allowing her to enjoy doggy life, you know, go on walks, play with Eliza, and do it in a comfortable way, to be honest. That's really sort of, I think, you know, her future. And I think she's got an amazing future with that. I mean, her and Eliza together in the arena, it melts your heart watching the two of them together. It's like, you know, they are both enjoying that interaction that they have with each other. Seeing her have her little walks down the bridle path, you know, and being aware of the squirrels, but it's maintaining that with her. You know, I think there's got to be no let up in terms of keeping her strong in her core. And you know, the team are just amazing at, you know, tweaking any little thing that we ask them to do, making sure she's got enough muscle down her back to keep her strong so that she can keep moving about and doing all those things she wants to do.
So from my point of view, a massive, massive thank you. I think Brave's in a much stronger place than she was. I think expectation-wise, I've realised that you have to adjust those. And I think you've helped me with that, which was definitely no easy feat, because your expectations have to realign to where you're heading. And it's not necessarily, like we've discussed on many different levels, it's not quite the future you imagined. And at the same time, actually, there's still a really cool future, just a bit different. So thank you loads, Mel. It's been amazing and a pleasure. And I know it doesn't end here.
No, definitely not. And you're very welcome. And it's been, the pleasure I get from it is being able to see her from that first day when I came in, when she couldn't even get herself up from laying down. And now she's going on walks, and like I say, all the stuff that she's doing with Eliza in the arena, and all those things are what for me make my job the most amazing job.
And I suppose I have to apologise, because I just know that we can't hear from everybody, and it's just not possible to pull everyone into cameras. But I actually think there's a lot to learn about living with dogs with disabilities, and another great resource and great person to know. And as much as I don't know Sarah really well, I do know that they do great things, and I do know that there's a lot of learning to living with dogs with disabilities. So I'll let Sarah explain.
I really wanted to create a space where dog parents could learn about what they could actually do to help their dog versus just being told what they couldn't do to help their dog, and to get some professional advice, but also a very nurturing, supportive environment. And that's basically where I came up with the idea of living with dogs with disabilities. We actually have this motto. It's called, it's not over, it's just different, when you're working through an injury with your dog. So it's really what the group is all about. And then when we connected, I actually connected with you through a local vet, Troy. And I'm just remembering back on the conversation, I was like, I'm just going to message her and say that if she needs anything, you know, we're here, however we can be here, because there's lots you can do to help. Rehab is not linear, and you kind of have to ebb and flow with it, and you have good days and you have bad days, but it's just part of the process, and it's all okay. And it's about learning what you can also to do to help your dog, and what devices might also help, and what other people might also be able to help, and bringing them all into it. So yeah, but it definitely ebbs and flows. It's not linear.
I'm hugely sure that this is not the end here of this. I know that I'm only just introducing you here to our groups and what we do, knowing that there's maybe a support network that people here may at some point need or turn to, because I think that's a big part of this, is growing the learning, growing the awareness, the knowledge, and the sharing capacity to enable dogs like Brave to have an even better life than maybe they've been given.
Definitely. Like I said, it's not over, it's just different.
And I suppose any of you that know any dogs with any disabilities, for me, again, I hope it's a learning curve you don't have to go on. And I hope that some of what we can share with you really helps. And at the same time, it's something that peripherally, I suppose I wish I'd had an awareness of, or maybe I don't, you know what, who knows. Another person who I think, Brave really has their full undivided attention on so many different occasions is the brilliant and wonderful Teresa, who gets to work with Brave on a daily basis and has literally changed Brave's world.
She's just an inspiration, regardless of anything that's happening. She has her off days, but she's still there, and she's still happy. She's, like I said, she's just amazing.
You know what, you really have to be very deliberate in what you're doing, very intentional. You have to be very present, you have to sort of slow down. All of these things in my whirling day don't always fit. And so it's really, really been amazing having effectively we've got an on-site rehab team. We have the swimming pool, we have the treadmill, and we have a great space up here. And so you never really knew why you did the things you did. And you know what, through COVID and the fact that we couldn't have got her into rehab very easily, I've really felt very grateful for the pool, and I felt very grateful for the treadmill, and I felt very grateful for all the people surrounding us who enabled this amazing journey with Brave. I suppose we've learnt to be brave from owning and loving and living with Brave. I suppose she's gone from being injured to being an absolute inspiration. Brave did initially have some pain relief and some anti-inflammatories and lots of other things that kind of helped her get on the road, but you know what, she's on no pain meds, she's not in any pain, she's on no anti-inflammatories, and really the big thing now is hydrotherapy, massage, great rehab, chiropractic care, Reiki, which she joyfully receives as often as her Auntie Helen can give her, lots and lots of hands-on, which she enjoys on a very frequent basis with Emma. And you know what, she is just a really lucky dog in so many ways. And here, when you're watching Brave, like, you know what, she is probably the most normal when she is doing her heel work. She loves doing her heel work. Like, if there was one job Brave would do beyond any other, it would be heel work. As soon as she hears the music kick on in the barn, oh my goodness, her tail is going, she is wagging her whole body, she is excited to be alive. Like, she loves it. The joy is incredible. Like, you will never see joy like it. Whilst Brave will never be a mum again, and that for sure does make me a little sad, you know what, she passes her genes on to Tokyo, because for those of you that know Tokyo, Tokyo is Brave's son. So Tokyo is the most amazing, incredible agility dog, and those genes do get passed on. And for me, that makes me incredibly proud and incredibly happy that we have her lineage in the future. Equally, Brave has a fairly luxurious life. She sleeps in our bedroom and has for the last year, after I said no dog would ever sleep in my bedroom again. Brave lives in our bedroom. And while she doesn't have maybe quite the same freedom that she would have had before, she can't be on slippy floors, she can't be on anything that's not completely stable, and she can't be on anything that would really cause her an injury, because ultimately we do not need her to be injured. She does get to go out for, here she is trotting actually, that's her kind of adapted trot. So you're seeing this like adapted trot. It looks so much better than the ataxic movement we had a little while ago, and you know what, it's not back completely, but it's a heck of a lot better. And I think the lesson I'm trying to give everybody here is perspective. The lesson of perspective from Brave is, okay, let's go from not so great to a little bit better. Let's go from a little bit better to a little bit better again. You know what? When we think about perspective, Brave's not where she was. And yet, if you think about where she was after the injury, oh my goodness, she's come on a long way. No, she may not have completely normal movement. And at the same time, you know what, Liza can still take her out for a walk and they can still have a lot of fun together. And so the lesson of perspective is massive. The other lesson I've learned from Brave, which I think is a very, very special lesson, is that dogs are so brilliant at teaching us presence. They are so brilliant at adapting. They are so brilliant at saying, okay, today I have 3 legs. She literally, there's no sort of mourning for the use of the leg that they could have and now don't have. There's no sort of getting up with a bad day or a grumpy mood. And for me, the amazing thing about Brave is that she's taken all of it in her stride. She understands that we carry her places now. She has a pen, which she never had before. She will wear a sling or a harness or a whatever you want to put on her feet. She just takes it. She will take any homeopathic medicines. She will take any special coats that she wears. She will take magnetic therapy. She takes it. She laps it up. She is such an easy dog. She's an easy patient to adore. And she's a really easy patient to work with. Like, you know what? I don't know, without the games, the concepts, the optimism and joy that this little dog has, I don't know that we'd be in the same place, because she absolutely enables it. She actively facilitates it. She sits and she wants to work it out, and she's fighting hard, and she gets a little bit better every day, like a little bit better. There are some odd days where maybe the balance isn't quite where we need it, but you know what? It balances up, and the slow, gradual progressions are amazing. You know what? It's not a race, and for Brave, it's definitely not been a race. I couldn't have talked to you about this at the last Super Trainer. It was way too raw, and to be honest, we didn't really know the prognosis. And I think that's a tough place to be. I felt like you guys deserved to know the journey, and I felt like I feel it's a privilege to share, and at the same time it's very raw to share. And I also felt there were so many things that we could take away from this, and there are so many things that we can learn from this, and there are so many things that we can grow. And at the same time, I hope that no one else ever goes through it, and yet realistically it's not as uncommon as you think. And so the lessons that we take away are almost more powerful than anything else, and the growth that we take away. So where does it all go from here? I was taking Easy for a scan, and something about the neurologist taught me confidence, or gave me confidence rather. And I felt like I could really trust where he was. Very big specialist, really knew his game. And I chatted to him about Brave, and he was really brilliant in turning around the story and changing the story. Because I think one of the things, and we talk to you all the time about it, is about your focus, your language, your state. You know what? I definitely need to get up and have a dance. And I was thinking about Brave as a bit of a victim. And I was thinking about myself too, and Eliza and Matt and all of us as like, poor us. Like, how have we gone through this? And why us? And why do this? And you know what? He changed it all. And he said, the thing is with Brave's injury, Lauren, is that no, she's unlikely to get completely better. Like, she's really not. And at the same time, when you look at her, this is a war hero. Like, you have a war hero, and your war hero is returning like glorious from literally many sort of war wounds. And she's coming home victorious. She's coming home and she's made it. And she's coming home and she's made it past what so many other dogs ever make it. And you're bringing home a really special dog. And these things that she does, her scars, they are beautiful. And you need to start to sort of celebrate what she is and not what she isn't. And you need to sort of change that, because she's no longer the same dog that you had. And at the same time, wow, like what an incredibly strong and brave and cool dog. And what a cool team you have that have taken her through this. Like, that is absolutely incredible. You know what? Changing this story has changed our lives. And whilst for sure I still ask, why Brave? You know what? I also say try Brave. Like, you know what? You don't want to mess with her. She's mean. Like, she will absolutely defy the odds. She will definitely step up and set her new standards. And she's so funny. She tells you what she wants. If she's in the swimming pool with us, I mean, it just makes me giggle. You go to get her out of the swimming pool and she swims in the other direction. Like, you are not catching me. Like, I am out of here and I like my swimming pool. Mindset really and truly is everything. I can say it to you time and time again, and you know what, it really is, it's meaningful, and mindset really is everything. And our mindset of our team has really changed this, and it's really allowed us to take a breath and realise that we're in a very good place, and we're in a very strong place, and we have a very good team behind us. The initial diagnosis was a huge shock, and it was a day I never want to relive. And yet the superhero that we live with right now, you know what, I think we live in a very different space to where we lived sort of over, what, 15 months ago now. And that journey, you've been able to share it with us, and you've been able to see where it's come from and where it's gone to. I am sorry I didn't share it with you earlier. It just wasn't possible. And you know what, I'm really grateful that I can share it with you now. The team have made it all possible. The training that underpins where Brave has come from has made all of this more possible. Brave is a really, really happy dog, and we're so grateful to everybody that has supported us and everybody that has given us, whether that's a pat on the back or whether it's a, you know what, I think Brave had something like, I don't know, 50 or 60 cards from Eliza's school. She really has had so many lovely people behind her. I'm so proud of her progress. I'm so proud of how Eliza's handled it, because you know what, that's a huge thing for a little girl. And most of all, I feel very, very lucky to own a dog like Brave. Most of all, I want you to know that we shared this with you because it's a really powerful journey. There's so much that we can take from this. Being Brave is way more than a namesake. Brave has literally blown it out of the park for me, that being brave is a way of life. So when you're struggling or when something's not maybe going quite to plan, I want you to think about being brave. I want you to balance the perspective up, and I want you to trade expectation for appreciation and share the moment of gratitude rather than worry or anxiety or overwhelm. For me, for sure, there were moments here of feeling hugely overwhelmed and hugely underskilled and underqualified to tackle any of this. And yet being brave has taught me that you do step up, you do go another level up, you do sit and be grateful for all of the brilliant sort of underpinning you've got, and at the same time you also weigh up that actually perspective is a real thing here. Like, we are in a good space and we're in a heck of a lot better space than we have been. So I'm challenging you today to step up and be brave. Whatever it might be that you are going through, and whatever it might be that is happening around you, being brave is a way of life. And the biggest takeaway for me is that you guys can be brave with me. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate all of your time. I really do not want anyone to go away feeling anything but appreciation for where we are, gratitude for the lifestyle that we live in, and most of all, taking away the message that we can all be brave.
Brave has done so amazingly well. Seeing that video of her when she first injured herself was heartbreaking when Lauren sent it to me, and seeing the transformation now has been absolutely remarkable. Brave, you're an amazing dog, the sweetest dog in the world, and I wish you all the luck and fingers crossed you keep getting better.
Keep being brave. You are 1 in a million. Lots of love.
It was fabulous to see her progress and to see the team approach and team effort that got her so far.
You shot it out, but I can't hear a word you say. I'm talking loud, not saying much. I'm criticized, but how your bullets ricochet. Shoot me down, but I get up. I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose. Far away, ricochet. You take your aim. Far away. You shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. You shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. Cut me down, but it's you who have further to fall. Ghost town, haunted love. Raise your voice, sticks and stones may break my bones. Talking loud, not saying much. I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose.